Yeah.
To date yourself, it means that I, Simon, I understand how I function. I understand what I want. When I know what I want, I will know what I don't need.
Mm-hmm.
MYD Heart is proudly brought to you by NHP. NHP, we are about you.
99 FM, your inspiration station. Welcome back to the show. It's time for MYD Heart. And we're talking about relationships and breakups on MYD Heart today with our special guest for the day, Dr. Simon Bobo. Now, a writer, author, entrepreneur, transformational public speaker, and relationship coach, Dr. Simon is passionate about sharing his insights on relationships. So good afternoon to you, Doctor, and thank you so much for joining us here at 99 FM.
Thank you so much for having me, and I want to thank the production team, the administration, and the management for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, sir. Please give us a brief introduction of who Dr. Simon Bobo is and what it is that you do exactly.
Well, like you have rightly put it in your introduction, I'm an author, an entrepreneur, a consultant. I provide mentorship, coaching and development on relationships, business, and finance. Mm-hmm. I also do provide corporate training. I do premarital and marital counseling.
Yeah.
So in summary, I can say I'm a life coach in all those three segments:
awesome.
Business, finance, relationships.
Amazing. We're talking about relationships, Doctor. In your personal opinion, what's the main difference between relationships back then and the ones that we have today?
Wow, thank you so much. Back then, when you look at the old times, is that relationships were more like see, investigate, relate.
Okay.
Now, modern relationships are more like see, like, buy. Now, the difference between the two is this. In the old times, if a man is interested in a woman, the family will actually take some time to actually investigate in the family of that man. Now, today we don't really have that kind of structure anymore. A lot of times people, if you ask them, like when I do counseling on the singles and the couples, if you find them, why are you together? They say, I like the guy. What do you like about the guy?
Yeah.
The guy is cute. What do you like about the lady? The lady is beautiful. But you see, when reality starts to dawn, they suddenly realize that being with someone that is cute, being with someone that is handsome or good looking is equal to 100 raised to the power 0 equals nothing. Because when real storms of life starts to come in, you realize that what will stand out is not the beauty, is not the cuteness, but it is the character that the person has.
That is so true.
Yes.
I like that. This next question, very important, Doctor. How can one tell if they are in a relationship with the right person?
Well, I've extensively touched that basically on some of my writings, but I'll just give a brief summary on that and probably using a scientific analogy to address this question. For example, we know that if you're a science student or you've studied science before, you know that water exists in 3 states. It exists in liquid state as water, it exists in solid state as ice, and then it exists in vapor as gas. Likewise, relationships exist in 4 states. The first state is called a healthy state. What is a healthy state? A healthy relationship. What is a healthy relationship? 2 whole singles coming together, not because they are looking for love, but they want to express love. 2 whole singles who are in a state of happiness. They are not looking for happiness. Now, the problem normally comes in when you find you are in a healthy state. It's a relationship that helps you to grow. It's a relationship that helps you to find yourself. In a healthy state, your individuality is not diminished. It's actually enhanced. So in a healthy relationship, you find 2 people who are working together, passionate about each other, and everybody is interested to see the other person grow.
Yeah.
Now, that's the first kind of state. The second one is called an abusive state. In an abusive state, you're not allowed to grow. Your individuality is diminished. And most of the time, abusive relationships, they prey on an individual weakness. For example, if you're lacking in the area of finances, the man probably will use that, or the woman will use that to exploit you. So you find that your own identity is lost. The third state is called a manipulative state. In a manipulative relationship, most of the time, the individual will hide his or her identity. They'll project more of their possessions. So they'll try to hoodwink you into the relationship using the possessions, using what they have. So you find when they are hooked to these things, right? And in a manipulative state, sometimes you find that there's a little bit of growth, but the growth is not genuine.
Yeah.
Because you find, okay, I was desiring to have a car. then this guy or this man buys for you a car. But when the relationship disintegrates, those things are demanded from you. But those things are the tools that were used to actually hook you.
Yeah.
That's a manipulative state. Then you find the most dangerous one, the toxic relationship. So in a toxic relationship, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because in that relationship, you don't really find yourself. You have the right to exist, but you don't have the freedom to live.
Wow.
I don't know if you really understand that.
I understand it.
Yes, you have the right to exist, but you don't have the freedom to live. This is in a place where you find, and the human nature in general, when there is oppression, you always try to look for freedom. So in these relationships, you find whereby the person is not interested to see you grow. The person is not interested to see you become better. And in most cases, you find you're not allowed to relate with your loved ones. You're not allowed to relate with your friends. Why? Because they know the more you have these channels in your life, the more your voice will find expression.
Yeah.
So what do? We block the channels.
Yeah.
Because that's a toxic relationship. That's where you find things like passion killing. You see that? Because in this type of relationship, they normally deal with rejection using murder. So it's very important if you find yourself in any of these states, like I've briefly said, due to the time and space you have given me, to really understand if you're in any of this relationship, the best thing to do is, if you're in, especially the last three, either look for counseling, but in most cases, I don't really advise where counseling really doesn't come into play, especially where your individuality has been affected.
Yeah.
The best thing is to exit.
To leave the relationship.
Yes.
It brings me to the next question, Doctor. When can one let go and know that a relationship is not worth saving? I think it happens a lot of times that we hold on to something that we have to let go of. So when do we know? When do I know that this relationship is not beneficial, and when do I let go of such a relationship?
Like what I've just said in the previous question, which I've addressed, you have to know what kind of a relationship are you really in. You have to really know that. So are you in a healthy state? If it's not healthy, then it means you should leave the relationship. Now, most of the times you find that a lot of people don't know that a wrong relationship can affect, and this has been scientifically proven, 60% of the quality of your life.
Yeah.
So you find that so many people have potentials, but those potentials have been buried. Why? Because they went into a relationship that was wrong, and those potentials were really buried. So in most cases, like I've extensively addressed this in many of my books, that you have to know, are you growing? You look into a relationship, are you growing? To what extent are you allowed to be free? Are you allowed to be yourself? Then these are some of the parameters which you can use as far as looking into, should I hold on or should I move forward?
Yeah. We'll continue with this conversation in a few minutes. If you're just tuning in right now, we're joined in studio by Dr. Simon Bobo, and we're talking about relationships and, what is a good relationship, and when it's, time to actually step away from a abusive, unhealthy or a toxic relationship. So stay tuned for more questions and more discussion on this topic right after Neo's Miss Independent on 99. Neo, Miss Independent on your inspiration station. If you're just tuning in right now, we're joined in studio by Dr. Simon Bobo on today's segment. That's MYD Heart, brought to you by NHP. We're talking about relationships, toxic relationships, abusive relationships. And I actually wanted to ask you a question, Doctor, before we commence, with the rest of the questions. We spoke about these, relationships. But what happens if I am in such a relationship but can't walk away or don't want to walk away? What do you think are some of the reasons that happens?
Well, the bottom line in many cases, a lot of people in relationship, they suffer from what is called the Stockholm syndrome. And a lot of people don't even know that they're actually dealing with that.
Yeah.
A Stockholm syndrome in simplicity is when you develop positive emotional feelings towards your abuser or your captor. Now, that's one of the reasons. The second one is called overdependence. Sometimes you find there's an area of lack in that individual's life whereby probably they are financially challenged, you understand? And because of that, they are willing to be abused at the expense of their livelihood, because simply they are scared that what happens if this benefit that this individual that is abusing them stop coming into their life.
Yeah.
The other thing is a lack of self-value, because if you really value yourself, you must be able to know exactly what you stand for, what you want, and what you don't stand for. And then the third one is that a lot of people go into relationship when they have not dated themselves. So the most important thing is that you must date yourself.
Yeah.
To date yourself, it means that I, Simon, I understand how I function. I understand what I want. When I know what I want, I will know what I don't need.
That is so true. What is your advice to anyone going through a heartbreak or breakup right now, who's recently went through a painful breakup or divorce, or who has lost hope in relationships? What's your advice for that
That's
person?
very, very important. Like you have rightfully said, heartbreak. It means you must take a break. That's what it means. You're going through a heartbreak, take a break. The problem with many people is that whilst they're going through the process of heartbreak, they try to prove to the other person that left that after all, I am good enough for someone. So they jump into another relationship before they've healed. Now, it's very important for you to go through the healing process, because the healing process is when you really find yourself within and you become whole again, because you don't want to give someone a particular piece of yourself that is not healed. That's why you find a lot of people, we talk about rebounds. You thought you were really in love, but you don't know that it was a rebound. Why? You jumped into a relationship, you didn't heal, then suddenly you find you are still attached to this person. So when you go through a heartbreak, take a break. That's for people who are probably single. If you are divorced, it means that people who are divorced, they were once in love. They once took each other to the altar. They were once in love. Now, when I teach people who come for counseling, there's what we call the root cause analysis. You must go to the root cause of why the relationship or the marriage disintegrated. Now, a lot of people shy away from that. Why? Because most of the time, you find the other person is blaming the other person why it happened. Now, the problem with that is that if you don't do a root cause analysis of your life, that what is root cause analysis? In simplicity, you do an introspect. Did I contribute a particular area of my life that led to the disintegration of this relationship? If you don't do that, you're going to find yourself again married, and the same things which you did not deal with will surface in the future. So whether it's business, whether it's relationship, you have to have a root cause analysis. Why? So that you can prevent the past mistakes surfacing into the future. Now, for those who have lost hope, it's very important, like I said, when you have gone through a bad phase in your relationship, sit down. When you sit down, look within. Why should you look within? You must then date yourself. Very important. I'll tell you that 90% scientifically proven. I researched this because it's my field. A lot of people don't date themselves. So because they don't date themselves, they now find themselves in a relationship and they want someone to understand them. That's where the problem comes in. So when you don't really understand yourself, you find that somebody else will bring things that you don't really like. Why? Because you never took time. Now, it's very important to understand the aspect of time when you're dealing with relationship. There are some things that, it can happen in a relationship and you can still correct them. Then there are some scars that when they are left, it will take a while, and in most cases it will be hard for you to move on. Even if you eventually move on, you still find yourself in that place, and the other relationship you find yourself in, it doesn't work. The other one again, it doesn't work. Why? You did not deal with your own fears, with your own problems. So in most cases, like I said, a divorce is two people who were once in love. So it's very important to take an introspect.
And I think it's also important to note, doctor, that before we can love and give ourselves, we have to love ourselves first and learn to
important.
and learn to learn who we are, because sometimes when we get into a relationship, at most times it's because we don't know who we are that these things happen. So knowing who you are, what you like, what you don't like, I think is the first step before you go into a relationship.
Very important.
Doctor, our last question for today, I actually still have so many, but finally, how does one pick themselves up after a heartbreak? What are some of the tips that you can offer for a person who is currently going through a heartbreak and doesn't know how to how to amend themselves and how to feel at this moment?
Now, this is very, very important as we round up. It takes 4 years to study a bachelor's degree. And even when you are done, a lot of people are still confused. Sometimes you might have to take some extra studies and go into postgraduate. Now, a lot of people, they have not invested in the area of relationships, because they think relationships are all about someone saying I love you, them saying me too. So they finally find themselves that if it takes you 6 years to study from a bachelor maybe into a master, sometimes even 3 more years to do a PhD, in total it becomes 9 years. What makes you think that you can just walk into a relationship without a reservoir of knowledge? Relationships require knowledge. Now this is what I say: if you are not informed, you will be deformed. If you're not inspired, you will expire. If you're not in the know, you cannot be in the flow. Information is key to transformation. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is. So you have to get information. You have to get knowledge. You're about probably to get married. I ask couples, how many books on relationships have you read? You are single. What do you understand about the opposite sex? How do they think? The anatomy of a man, the anatomy of a woman. If you don't understand those things, the truth of life is this: you can't give what you don't have. So it's very imperative that you invest in knowledge. That's very, very important. Invest, read as many books as you can on that particular area. So that's the first point I can actually give. Then to the singles, I will say this: it is better to wait long than to marry wrong. Very, very important. It is better to be single hoping to be married than to be married wishing you were single. Marriage does not define who you are, because you were not created for marriage. Marriage was created for you. So you can be single and successful. You can be single and still achieve your dreams. But however, if you choose to be married, if you choose to be in a relationship, make sure, like I've said, marriage is not a competition. Marriage is a commitment. If you are not ready to commit, don't be pressured to compete.
Wow.
Very important.
Powerful, so powerful. Doctor, thank you so much for such a really, really, eye-opening conversation. And if you are just tuning in right now and you missed out on this conversation, on this interview, remember, you can always rewind on the app. So make sure you download the app right now and register on the app as well to be able to, listen to some of this incredible interviews that we have on your inspiration station. Doctor, thank you so much once again for joining us here at 99.
Thank you so much.
It is a pleasure. What a great interview on the segment today. And like I said, you can always rewind and have a listen again if you missed out on the interview on the app. That was MYD Heart.